Hi, all. Welcome back to the Congressional App Challenge Debugged podcast. My name is Medha, and today our guest is someone who has been to space, which is so cool. Sirisha Bandla, who currently works as the VP of Government Affairs and Research Operations for Virgin Galactic. In this role, Sirisha oversees legislative, regulatory, and government business priorities for the company, as well as works with research companies to fly science and technology experiments on Virgin Galactic's spaceship class of vehicles. Sirisha has a degree in aeronautical and astronautical engineering from Purdue and an MBA from George Washington University. Sirisha, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. This is,
Yeah.
I saw the presentations for some of the students
Mhm.
as part of the Congressional App Challenge here in Orange County. So it's really cool to be a part of the podcast and hopefully reach so many more students.
That's so cool, and really great to hear. It's also awesome to see that you went to GW. I grew up in the DC area, so very cool that
Yeah,
you
it's
spent.
great. I love DC. I just
Yeah.
moved about a year and a half ago. It's such an incredible place that just
Mhm.
brings together so many cool people in like
For
one
sure.
small area.
For sure. And I'm sure it's just so much nicer weather in California. Um,
Yes, that is a perk.
Much better perk. Although it is 80 degrees today, which is good.
I
Um,
love it.
but anyway, I'd love to just hear a little bit more about like your background and your story. How did you like when you did you go to Purdue knowing you were gonna do like aeronautical and astronomical engineering, or like how did that interest even come to be for you?
Yeah, I've wanted to go to space ever since I was young. So I had really planned out everything I wanted to do throughout my life. And that would lead me to a career where I would be able to go to space. And part of that was choosing Purdue University.
Mhm.
I went to high school and part of middle school actually in Indiana, so it was nearby. But I probably would have chosen it whether I lived in California or Texas at the time
Mhm.
because Purdue was the school that Neil Armstrong went to. Not only Neil Armstrong, but Gene Cernan, the last man on the moon as well, and also graduated an incredible number of astronauts. So I was like, what other school would be there to increase my chances? I'm just going to go to the school that has the most
Mhm.
astronauts.
That's such a that's such a serve, honestly. I didn't even know so many astronauts went to Purdue. How did you know you wanted to go to space from such a young age?
So it started, I think my earliest memory I can remember is, I was born in India
Mhm.
and there is a lot of power outages in India. The demand on the grid for some of the cities is not proportional to the people that live there. Um, so we'd get experience a lot of power outages. And I remember one of the nights we had a outage, we slept on the roof just because it was so hot inside. And I remember looking out at the stars and when the whole city is in darkness, um, the stars are so bright, and I remember looking up and just kind of wondering how cool it would it be to go out there. I want to go see how close I can get to them, when I was young. So that was the very early kernel, and I just never really grew out of wanting to go explore space since that very early memory.
That is such a cool story, and it's just honestly, I feel like that's such a formative experience, right? Just to like be able to look at the stars, so often growing up. That's so cool. And did you ever like think like did you ever feel like deterred from your path at all? Like it sounds like you always knew like I'm gonna go to space, but did you ever get like distracted or like do a side quest or something like that?
I love side quests. I do side quests all the time.
Mhm.
um, but it's, I was very focused on going to space. I think the closest I came was in high school. I remember going to a routine optometrist appointment,
Mhm.
getting my eyes checked out because I've had glasses since I was in third grade. And the optometrist told me that, here's your new prescription, and gave my new prescription. Unfortunately, my eyes at that point had gotten to a point that was pretty bad. I could still correct it with contacts and glasses, but it disqualified me from being an astronaut through NASA.
Mhm.
Um, and at that point there was no LASIK allowed. So I remember thinking about that and realizing that I couldn't actually go achieve my dreams because of this physical barrier that I had that I really couldn't do anything about. So that was I think one period of my life where I was then searching for
Mhm.
something else. I was, I think, 15, and I was like, oh man, I've wasted my entire life. And 15 years old, you've got an entire life ahead of
Yeah.
you. But no, that's what I felt. And that was the same year that I saw the Anasari X Prize, and it was a competition for private industries to build and fly a vehicle to go to space with humans and then do it again in 2 weeks. Because not only were they trying to develop this technology and accelerate this technology, they wanted to do it in a sustainable way that would lead to, an industry. And the Anasari X Prize happened, yeah, back in 2004, and I saw Spaceship One fly to space with a pilot and land and then do it again in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And this turned on that light bulb that I had slowly turned off or was slowly dimmed down because I thought I couldn't go to space. But once I saw Spaceship One go to space and saw that it could be done in a different way, not through government, I realized that I could do this, and there's other ways to go to space than just NASA at the moment. And I saw Virgin Galactic actually was announced right after the Anasari X
Mhm.
Prize as a company that was going to send more and more people to space and open space up for all. And I remember thinking, okay, my plan is back on. I can still go to space. I just can't do it through NASA right now. And I was okay with that.
Okay, that's awesome. I mean, what a turn of events. I'm sure that must have been a really like whirlwind of experiences for a 15-year-old.
I know, I know. And then I mean, I didn't, I kind of manifested it because like
Mhm.
after, years, I ended up joining Virgin Galactic
Mhm.
to work full time. And it's just incredible to see how the industry has grown since when I first saw it. I almost seem like I saw it start and now I'm a
Yeah.
part of it and it's growing and it's so exciting.
That's such a cool experience to have. Like, there's very few industries like that, right? Where people can say, like, I watched it grow and I watched it catalyze
Yeah.
and now you're making history, which is so cool. And so I'm curious, like, why did you choose that you were going to study the engineering side of it? And like now, obviously you work on the governmental affairs side. Like, how did you make the decision to shift from technical to a little bit less technical?
Yeah, so when I was studying like what what do I need to do to become an astronaut?
Mhm.
It was, I mean, it was just honestly as simple as that. Like, growing up, you read books on the people that have done it before you and learn from their journey. So I was
Yeah.
learning from the astronauts that had gone to space before me, and they were either um, military test pilots or they were engineers. And that was predominantly the majors I saw that were, successfully accepted into the astronaut corps. I could not be a test pilot because of my eyes.
Mhm.
So I decided to go the engineering route. And it's interesting because now the more and more people go to space, not only with commercial spaceflight companies, but with NASA, you see way more diverse backgrounds. You're seeing biologists, you're seeing a lot more doctors, you're seeing
Mhm.
so many different backgrounds of people going to space that, I think back to when I was young, had I seen all of this, like what would I have chosen? Who knows?
Right.
But I honestly did choose engineering because I saw it as one of the um, most common reoccurring fields that astronauts went into to go to space. So chose that. Thank goodness I liked it. So I did go into aerospace engineering because I did develop this love for space and aviation throughout my life, studying how to be an astronaut, and yeah, chose aerospace engineering, and I had so much fun in school. And so much, I'm having fun right now just being a part of this world because I do really enjoy seeing how things work and being able to be a part of designing and testing.
Mhm. That's amazing. And it makes total sense, right? Why back then, like they would send engineers, they have to know how to fix it if
Yep.
something breaks. So that makes total sense. What kind of reaction did you get from people when you would tell people so confidently from a young age, like you wanted to go to space? And did you ever have people like push back at you and be like, oh, you can't do that for whatever reason?
I was very lucky. I had a very supportive family and
Mhm.
network that encouraged me to, literally and physically, like
Yeah.
reach for the stars, like figuratively and physically reach for the stars. So I had a really incredible network, and I think that that really contributes to my success. And it wasn't only my family, but once I got into engineering and even in my early professional career, I sought out mentors that provided that support as well. And I had a lot of mentors, especially women, that
Mhm.
really gave me the advice and direction I needed to get to where I'm going. And I think that's really key to have that because they've gone through so much. A lot of the people that gave me advice had to build their own way because it was a much tougher environment for them. I had a really great support network. I think my personality has always been if someone tells me no, I take it as a soft guideline as opposed to
Mhm.
an actual answer, especially as it relates to my career. So I know that's not always for what everyone goes through, but it was my experience that I had a very supportive network, and when I was in an environment where I didn't have that around me, I would seek those people out to make sure it's there because I realized very early how important that was for me.
That's really good, and I think that's honestly just so empowering, right? To hear. And so when you talk about your mentors, what were there any like standouts in terms of like who you were looking for, how you were approaching mentors, and then in the types of advice they gave you, is there anything that you want to call out for the audience?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, who I approached, it was usually someone I met at an event, or even honestly, one of my mentors, I had left a meeting that
Mhm.
I was talking to this person, on the quote unquote opposite side of the table, coming together on, issues that we had differences in. And after that meeting, I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, this person's really cool. And I really appreciated their view of this. So I sent them an email and just said, hey, do you mind if I pick your brain a little bit more, not only on this topic, but life?
Mhm.
And to my surprise, she's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's just sometimes they'll say no. They say they don't have time, and I totally respect that. But you never know until you actually ask. And I
Right.
think that stops a lot of people. They assume they're going to say no, and they don't want to bother that person, so they won't even reach out. But you have nothing to lose from sending an email or making a phone call just to make the ask. And that's honestly how I got a lot of my mentors. One standout mentor I would say is Patty Grace Smith. She was one of the first women to run. She was the first woman to run the commercial space office at the FAA, and she was incredible. She always took time to answer my questions, and especially as a woman, I think she saw um, that there was scenarios I was in where I was trying to struggling to understand whether this was normal or not, and she was just there to say, no, it's not normal. It's because of X, Y, and Z, and here's how I approached it. And just hearing that, hey, I am in the scenario that other people have gone through, and no, it's not normal and it's not what it should be, was enlightening. Because sometimes I think we get into these environments and we just accept that this is the way it has to be and this is the way it's gonna be. And just to have someone to say, no, that's not, and you can change it, it was just empowered me to do what I needed to do and to move forward. And she was one of those people.
That's so cool. And so based off of that and what you said earlier about like when you hear no, you take it as a soft guideline, not as like an absolute. What's been like the coolest or like the best no you've received that you've been able to turn into a yes? Like what's been like the best outcome that you've been able to flip?
Yeah, so I think when I first graduated, I applied to Scaled Composites
Hmm.
because I really wanted to go work for the company that, built Spaceship, the vehicle that took people to space and is, kickstarted this commercial human space flight industry. And that interview went so badly.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, some of the advice I got actually was not, it was interesting. It's not, we don't think you are, it wasn't, I'm trying to put this, they were very nice about it. So I want to capture that they were very nice
Mhm.
about it. They didn't say like, you don't know the material, thus you can't work here.
Right.
The person I was talking to gave me some interesting feedback. They said, we do think you know the material, but you aren't able to really, you're having a hard time communicating it.
Mm.
So it was funny. The recruiter's like, we do think you know everything we asked you, but you're stumbling around. We're not sure if it was nerves, but you really never communicated the answer to show us that you understand the material. And I took that advice to heart because after that, I spent a lot of time working on learning how to communicate and communicate effectively, and realized how important that is. Like, no one's going to be a better advocate for yourself than you.
Mm.
And that advice I took very seriously. And that actually ended up me, moving into government affairs. Because that is the key to being a policymaker is to take very complex technical information and be able to communicate it out in a way that showcases to the other party why they should care. And it got me to government affairs, and it got me to the job I have now at Virgin Galactic. So it was very interesting. Just that one small rejection and that piece of advice that honestly I think kickstarted a very successful career. And I ended up, yeah, going to Virgin Galactic, which built the next generation of spaceship.
So with that, I think we're approaching on time. So thank you so much for taking the time, Sirisha, to talk to us about your journey. It was so awesome and incredible to have you. Thank you to all the listeners. And come back next week for a new episode.